There we go. Welcome. Wednesday night, Rebel Dharma. Glad you're here. My name's Jason Murphy. Those of you pretty much think I know everyone, or at least I've met just about everyone in the room. You've been here before, right? In the back?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. What's your name again?
Matt.
Matt. Yeah. Welcome. Welcome again. And well, I mean, maybe there's a few new people to the group, right? So are you new to the group? Maybe we've met, but maybe you're new to the group. You want to introduce yourself, just say your name. Also for online.
Sure, I'm David. I'm new to this group. I'm new to the Wednesday night, but I know Jason.
Yeah, good to see you.
It's my first time here too. I'm Ash, but we've met.
Yeah, we have. Oops. Welcome.
Well, it's the first time the one's in there. Yeah, I think we've met.
I think we've met. Yeah, I might have seen you around.
And I'm Andy, and it's my first time being here.
Okay, first time to this center. Wonderful. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else that wants to introduce themselves? All right. What about online? Any of y'all? Brave souls? No? Okay. Well, enough out of you. No. Just playing. Well, so this is a meditation group, so we do some meditation here, and various kinds of meditation within the, I guess, is commonly called Vipassana or insight meditation practice. I have been trained in both the insight or Vipassana practice and the Thai forest lineage, northeastern Thailand. There's a pretty strong link between what we're calling the insight meditation sangha or community and the kind of Southeast Asian, Thai, Burmese, Sri Lankan, Cambodian style of Buddhism. And yeah, so I spent many years going back and forth, traveling around those countries, India as well. Spent some time in monasteries. Yeah, I've been at this for a little while. I started meditating when I was seriously when I was probably 22, and I was introduced to meditation when I was about 15 or 16. And I'd like to say it saved my life because I believe that to be true. Yeah. I don't really have a topic today. I just taught Monday and then last week, and we've been talking about karma and rebirth, and I've kind of that's such a big, I could always, kind of circle back and unpack some of that. But my hope today, and I have a couple backup plans, but my hope today is to really elicit some questions from you after we sit for a little bit and just, kind of have a Q&A or what I like to call freestyle Dharma. So let's start with some meditation. So finding a posture that's workable, that's sustainable, one where you can be relaxed and alert. Let me make sure my audio settings are correct so that you guys can hear the sound of the bell. So as we settle in, just taking a moment and doing a bit of a mental check-in. Like, what's happening here? How's the mind? How's the body? How's the emotional stores or emotional body. What's present as we begin this formal meditation period? After a few moments, I'd like to ask for you to set the intention, if you want to, that there's nothing worth thinking during this time. There's no thought worth chasing, unpacking. There's nothing worth thinking. And instead, to kind of drop into the sitting, feeling, being body. Giving the thinking, doing mind a rest. As we settle in, it's a good idea to find an anchor. The breath, particular place in the body, even the comings and goings of sound can all be relied upon as a touch point, a place to come back to. Breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Feeling that connection with breath and body, here and now. When breathing out, know that you're breathing out. This present time experience. Of course, just setting an intention to not think or not get lost in thought may not be enough. And that's not a problem. After all, the mind's job is to think. One of the ways we can work with this is if we find ourselves drifting off or lost in some thought of past or future, we just gently say, "Not now," and return to this sitting, breathing body as an anchor, as a refuge. Here, being here. Again and again. Just recognizing when the attention wanders off, And just gently letting the mind know, not now. With that sense of friendliness or kindness with the mind, we're not going to think about that now. And then aiming the attention back. Connecting with some present time experience, breath, body, sound. And then sustain that connection for as long as possible. This is the process to gently return again and again. Without judgment or criticism, but with curiosity and openness. Relax, observe, allow. Each breath, each moment. Can we connect with a sense of calm arising in the body, in the mind? Perhaps a sense of contentment. Things are just as they are. Perhaps a connection to this present time. Calm, content, connected. Regardless of the mental or physical or emotional phenomena. Accepting this moment as it is, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Well, that was all I had planned. The rest is kind of up to you. Meaning, I'd like to open up for questions, things that you maybe have heard, questions that you have about the teaching or the Dharma, or maybe where Buddhism and neuroscience, or Buddhism and psychology, or Buddhism and recovery merge. I think I'm qualified to cover that amount of topic, or I'll just say I don't know. So any thoughts, questions, or about the instruction, or? Yeah, Frank.
So, I mean, this one started off with a pretty, a different kind of intention.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of no thought is worth thinking, essentially. And I've never really thought about, intention gets used a lot, that word.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of seems like I never really gave it a lot of specific thought.
Uh-huh.
So maybe, I'm just curious, like, how that, if you can expand on that in a way, but also in a very practical way, I'm curious too, like, what are different kinds of intentions that
Mhm.
people use, that you use, and what's the role, especially like with recovery or with like emotional trauma, do you set different kinds of intentions in your practice or people you work with, and.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a different lead-in than I normally give, and I don't know why. I just was inspired to give that intention, which of course you didn't have to do. You could have been like, "Fuck you! I'm gonna think about whatever I want." Yet that's not necessarily meditation, right? So the just even that phrase or that instruction, like, I actually got that from a teacher when I was on a retreat, and they just dropped it in one morning, and I was like, oh yeah, like there's nothing really worth thinking. And of course, my mind wanted to disagree, and oh, what about this, and what about that, and what about this? Remember that? Like, you really want to think about that, And it was an opportunity to recognize, yeah, no, nothing is really worth thinking right now. There's a Zen quote. Can't remember. I can make up some teacher Suzuki Roshi said, but I don't really remember who said it. But it's the third Zen patriarch, and I don't remember their name. And what they said was, if you stop thinking and talking, there's nothing you can't know. Stop thinking and talking, and there's nothing that we can't know. So that instruction of setting an intention to just not get lost in our thoughts, or not give it too much attention. So that's an interesting. So there's intention, and then there's attention, right? So when we're setting an intention, it's like, what is my intention? Well, my intention is not to follow my thoughts during this meditation. Did that happen? Did you guys all do that perfectly?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I nailed it.
Nice. Nice. Most often, most beings, unless, highly concentrated or on the verge of enlightenment are having a challenge with that, living in our busy days. Yet the intention is still there. And that, what is that intention? But the intention is to, we're setting an intention. You're kind of telling your mind, you're telling your heart, this is how I want to be. And then I'm going to fall off that intention. I'm not going to hit the mark every time. There might be some moments, right? And there might be more moments where you catch it. And then that's where I give that kind of the not now. I just really like that not now. And I picture like a hamburger helper hand or like a Mickey Mouse glove hand, just something really soft and like kind of gentle. They just like not now, just like tossing it into the back of my mind. Like, so it's not, that's just what comes up in my mind, So it's not like a, whack-a-mole, like get that thought out of here, because that's not the intention, right? The intention is to set, so you set some intention, and then you give attention to, whether the mind is, obeying or not. There's this quote that popped into my mind towards the end of the sit. Actually, I thought about giving it as an instruction, but I felt like I was talking too much. So that was one of my thoughts. Like my thought train was like, you're giving away too many instructions. Like, shut up, just let him meditate, And then I just was like, not now, let it go. And then one of the quotes that popped up is, the mind is flighty, alighting where it wishes, one does well to tame, which is a teaching of the Buddha. The mind is flighty, alighting where it wishes, one does well to tame. So to say more, I mean, like, last week I talked about intention, what is intention, but the nose of the ox, right, that draws the cart. So in speaking about karma, the nose of the ox is, so the ox in the metaphor is us, is our intention, is our practice, is our, this body walking through the world. And the cart that pulls it, or that it pulls, is our karmic momentum. So our intention starts this karmic process. And there's even some teachings connected to karma that, like there's that more Western American phrase, right? Like what is it? Something about the road to something is paved with good intentions. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. That's what it is. Yeah. So we can there's a way in which we can kind of trick ourselves. Oh, well, my intention wasn't to break your heart, even though I lied and manipulated to, every time we were in the relationship, or, whatever, right? But my intention wasn't to cause harm, even though I was repeating the cycle of, abuse that I've had in me since I was a child. My intention wasn't, you know what I mean? Like there's that we can use that word intention, like kind of like you mentioned, it gets thrown around a lot. And in Buddhism, it's meant as a precursor for thought, a precursor for action, So our intention, even if we don't follow to the best of our ability, we fall off, the mind wanders. Of course the mind wanders. It's the mind, And sometimes it doesn't wander. And that doesn't mean, and then what we have to watch there is, does ego pop up? Be like, see, my mind doesn't even wander. That's how fucking awesome I am at meditating, We have to watch that, right? So intention connected to action or thoughts or words or deeds, this is related to karma, right? It's intrinsic. And there are some examples in talking about karma where, like, inadvertently killing bugs. I just rode up to to Northern California on my motorcycle, and I have this windshield, which I was grateful for because otherwise I would have taken many bugs in the face. And but yet, like halfway up, I was like, it was just, you know, it was a death field, you know, of just splattered blood, you know, bug guts.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, this was not my intention. Like I didn't want to intend, like I didn't, yeah, my intention wasn't to kill these bugs, you know. Now there has been, of course, times, and I was talking about it not that long ago, where like I had a big cockroach in my house. I guess technically they're called water bugs, but it was gigantic, and I intentionally killed it. And I recognized in the moment of doing that, there might be some karmic implication here, and I was willing to accept it. Where the 372 bugs that were splattered all over my windshield, from the Buddhist perspective, I don't have to take on any karmic momentum from that, because the intention, that wasn't the intention. So that's why I'm saying the intention is the nose of the ox, right? That's leading thoughts and actions and repercussions. Yeah, I mean, you know, there's other, I mean, one of the Eightfold Path is intention, mindfulness of intention, bringing mindful awareness to what is your intention? What's your intention here? What's your intention to meditate? You know, what's your intention in this day? You know, so I gave you an intention, of course, and I apologize for not saying you don't have to take it. Of course, you make your own decisions and you could decide to not follow that intention. But if you decided to give it a try, then you get to see how it went, right? I think the way that my teacher, Gil Fronsdale was his name, is his name. The way he gave the instruction, for the purpose of meditation, there's nothing worth thinking. That was the way he gave the instruction one morning, and then I worked with it for, you know, the rest of my life. So setting intention is, I think, is useful. You know, it can direct our day. And you know, those people in recovery, I think you know, we could kind of recognize that, right? Setting some kind of intention for the day. Oh, my intention is to be of service, or my intention is to, you know, heal as much of my trauma as possible today. My intention is to not react when somebody cuts me off. That was my intention earlier today, and it worked. Did a good job. Go me. Oh, that was the ego a little bit. Sorry. Pops up from time to time. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I have to say about intention, unless there's kind of a follow-up or more. If I didn't quite hit, if you give me something back, and then we can move forward. And perhaps that's enough for now. I guess that, you know, what I'm trying to say is mindfulness of intention. Can we bring mindfulness to our intention? And it can be very small, like, what's my intention in this conversation? What's my intention in going to work today? What's my intention in, you know, the whole day? What's my intention for going to meditation? What's my intention for following this Buddhist path? What's my intention for living this life? What's my intention with this partner? You know, like, we can just, it can expand and expand and expand. And if we have a mindful awareness, and we're hopefully following some of the precepts, right, which are basically our safeguards. Like, you can set intention, but the Buddha's like, okay, so there's these 5 basic, you know, guidelines. I was going to say expectations, but they're guidelines. They're not commandments. And if you want to reduce suffering in your life, you'll follow them. If you set that as an intention, you might see some positive results, right? What are the 5? Non-harming, non-killing, protecting life, being wise and careful with speech. In other words, not being slanderous or gossip or, basically talking shit or putting other people down, that kind of thing. Not taking that which is not offered. So kind of living in your means, and not intentionally stealing. And then the wise with sexuality, right? To be wise and careful with our sexuality is I think a big one around intention. Yeah. And also a big one around suffering, So to be wise and careful with our sexuality really means just to engage carefully and not and be aware of the intention when utilizing that energy. And for some people, it's not utilizing, but actually avoiding that energy, or renouncing is the phrase, right? Renouncing, like putting it aside, which I've done. I've put it aside for periods of time, long periods of time. If it's something that you haven't done, it's useful to do. I mean, there's intentionally doing it, and then there's unintentionally doing it, right? Like I can't get a date for the life of me. I keep swiping and nothing, man, nothing. There's that, which, and then there's, I'm going to set a really clear intention to keep that energy in for a period of time and see what happens. And then the 5th precept is to, really it's to abstain from all mind-altering substances, with a caveat of that lead to heedlessness. The kind of concept here is that if you're drinking and getting high and, taking mushroom on the weekends, then you're more likely to slip in the other 4. So better to just set it down. Of course, if you're someone who has particular addictions, then that's and you're wanting to stop acting out in an addictive way, craving to have things be other than they are, then it's a pretty good decision to set it aside. So there's intention involved with precepts as well. Mm-hmm. Bella, can you open that window? There might be some latches. Anything else? Questions? Thoughts? Comments? This is freestyle Dharma, so please.
I don't know if this is relevant, but it's been on my mind a lot lately. And I feel like it's in the zeitgeist of language, trauma, and our processing trauma, and our exploring of self, and exposing yourself to our trauma so that we can heal, and how that would be related in Buddhism through meditation. What is the process? Is there a process in which we are exploring our trauma, and there's all these modalities and therapies and different ways of going about it. And I'm just kind of curious what the thoughts are here.
Yeah, great question. I'll just kind of reframe it for those of you at home. So this question of trauma and the play or the work between meditation, Buddhism, and the healing of trauma, or the what I would say maybe integration of trauma.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes what is trauma is an experience that has been split off or separated or pushed away. So it's been exiled, as some psychological models would call it, or exiled parts or experiences that we don't want to deal with, right? So how does that play out within meditation, or how does meditation help facilitate that? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how that's wrapped up with this sense of self, right? Well, what's really interesting, I was just reading this article that they meaning the neuroscientists of the Western world, have finally proven that there is no I. There is no self. There's no within the brain, they've done all this brain mapping, and that there's this, kind of multifaceted, kind of connective group of experiences that we call the self. Really, there really isn't one place that it exists. So there is no I, which, is of course what the Buddha talked about 2,568 years ago. So it's nice that Western science has caught up, which has happened quite a few times, actually. And when something like that happens, it reaffirms my faith in the teachings of the Buddha. When our modern science is like, yeah, okay, well, now in the last 10 years, 15 years, we've started mapping the brain, and we can't find any one particular location of what we call the self. But to answer your question, there's a disentangling that happens through meditation. There's several things. One, so what is trauma? But something that overwhelmed our capacity to cope. What is meditation? Increasing our capacity to cope. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is that trauma isn't just the one incident, but it's actually what happened after and how we're reacting to it now. And so it's further identification with what happened. Basically, it gets locked within us somewhere, somewhere maybe in our left hemisphere, our logistical memory, or in our right hemisphere, our kind of more emotional memory, or somewhere within the body. And meditation, and from a Buddhist perspective, the work to be done here, and this would be in line with karma, is to release what's been disavowed, or maybe bring back in, or maybe integrate what's been disavowed, what's been avoided, so that we can actually have a solid sense of self that doesn't have parts that are hidden. And in that integration that happens with this kind of Western understanding of healing, then there is an inability to really be free from what we call the self. Because we could very easily say the self is identified with the trauma, and we're actually living each moment just carrying this traumatic event with us, because it's what we identify with, because it's what gives us meaning, because it feels like this is who I am, or this is who I don't want to be. There's that other side of it too. Same thing. They're both attachment, right? This is who I am. I'm identified with. I was like that for a long time. Super identified with my trauma. Super identified with my alcoholism and my, addiction and my violence. No, I'm not saying that that's gone, but there's more integration today because of meditation. Did I get at what you were?
Yeah.
Of course, so meditation, mindfulness based stress reduction, meditation, loving kindness, heart practices. So we're developing wisdom in being able to see that it's not all about us. It's not all about me. It's not all about we. We get so locked into, oh, everything is about us, right? That's selfish and self-centered craving, right? That kind of locking in is what causes suffering. It's the rope burn of life, right? And, I know that for a lot of us, just in relationship to trauma, the only thing I knew how to do, and the only thing that often people know how to do, is to lock it away and move forward, dissociate, avoid. Of course, super skillful. I wouldn't be here if I let the overwhelming feelings of my traumatic childhood take me over, which is why I tried to drink them away, which is why I tried to take tons of mushrooms, which is why, I tried to do all kinds of things, fight, fuck, whatever, eat, travel, be someone else. All of these kind of dances it's what we need to do. It's a survival strategy. And at some point, it'll kill us, right? So the work here is to get grounded, feel safe and connected, that calm, content, and connected that I gave as an instruction. That's what I'm talking about, is the nervous system. I'm talking about what's called the polyvagal theory, right? I'll actually share it with you because I think it makes sense here. And it's this model I've been working with for a while.
Can I add a question too?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so you're saying like Western neuroscientists have like discovered that there's like no self, like that they can't pinpoint it in the brain, right? So it's like
brain or body, yeah.
I mean, I love all that stuff, like Buddhist concept of like, becoming selfless, but like I just always feel like this awareness of like beyond like my identity of like who I see in the mirror with this body and my experience is like kind of like what they refer to as like nirvana, like just like supreme awareness. I think it's like something like that, or I think nirvana means to like blow out or something like that, so it's like what I'm getting at is like, okay, so like how the fuck could they know that we can't pinpoint the self, what I mean? Like there's no instrument that could possibly see the soul, you know what I mean? But I understand like Buddhists also have a perspective of there is no soul. So I mean, like I love Buddhism, but then it's like I truly feel there is a creator.
Great, and that's wonderful.
I just I don't know, but it's not like the biblical one. Like I see us like in the mind of God, if you will.
God. Yeah. You can say the word God here. You can say the word God here.
Yeah.
It's all right.
I was gonna say the all.
Yeah, the all. Sure. And you have a little bit of a different orientation, as do most Westerners, right? Most of us are kind of connected in that way around having some indoctrination into some Judeo-Christian understanding and or in the yogic traditions. And cool. One of the things that I love about Buddhism is that when the Buddha was asked, like, okay, all right, is there a God?
Right.
He would say, he actually was silent. He gave no answer. He was asked many times. Was given no answer. And when further inquired, he would say, it's not the point whether there is or isn't a God. Whether there is or isn't a God isn't the point. Whether there is or isn't a self isn't the point. There's one instruction where he talks about whatever it is that we conceive of as a self, it's ever other than that. Which, I just really like. So, yeah, it's fine that you don't hold the same,
Okay, one more thing that it's like, all right, so there's no like self, right? Like, so what do we all merge just back into the one? It sounds like God, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm just curious on your perspective on it. It's like if this.
Well, it sounds like you have a strong perspective. Yeah. I actually don't have a strong perspective about it. Yeah.
So do you just think that the self just dissipates and it's not even real?
So what Buddhism teaches is that we, as taking this human form, are made of parts.
Yeah.
And that just like anything else in the material world, parts come together and parts break apart. And that is all. That's the Buddhist perspective. Yeah. So I appreciate the question. Yeah. I'd like to move on. Because we were talking about, I was talking about content, calm, content, and connected, and how that relates to what's called the polyvagal theory. So this polyvagal theory was created by Stephen Porges. This is a very common way of looking at trauma and how something like meditation and even like just taking a calming breath, a deep breath, doing yoga, doing tension release exercises can shift us out of these kind of higher, kind of activation and have us kind of stay in this kind of lower ventral vagal kind of social, so feeling connected in the green zones, right? So there's the green zone, the red zone, and the blue zone. And so fight and flight are basically when we're reactive, where there's arousal, we're reactive, we're either moving away, right? We're either aversive or we're moving toward, we're kind of grasping onto. The fight is very activating, right? And so both of these are actually ways that the body and the brain just tries to find homeostasis and safety. It's all about safety. And when there's trauma, it's usually about a lack of safety. Doesn't even matter when it happened. It could have been yesterday, could have been when you were 7. And so one of the interesting things that happens here is that we have people who are anxiety prone or people who are anger prone, but that tends to be sympathetic stress response activation. And then on the top here, the dorsal vagal is kind of what happens after that. So most of the time people just see the fight or flight as that's the activation, but actually there's this whole decompensation, this body collapse, this immobility, this freeze response. And for some people, they actually don't have the fight or flight. They go right into the freeze response because that was just as some animals are flight, some animals are fight, some animals are freeze, right? And so there's this group of symptoms there also, or a group of things that we experience. And so what does meditation help us to do? But I would say kind of stay down to that squiggly line. That's kind of sympathetic social engagement, right? Meditation helps us to take an observational view of what we're experiencing instead of being so bound up to what we're experiencing that we're reacting out of the experience. Does that make sense? And I just kind of think this is a cool graph, so that's why I want to show it. I try to roll it into everything I'm talking about. And so there's actually some great body-centered, Peter Levine being one, Calming the Tiger Within, I think it's called, and there's a few other books that he Taming the Tiger Within, and then and then there's like Hakomi therapy. There's a lot of body-centered somatic therapies that are also about finding this regulation. Yoga is also very good for that. Not necessarily like the gym yoga, but like actually, kind of doing something like a hatha yoga practice, or maybe, even Ashtanga and stuff is good too, especially if it's more kind of that working that sympathetic energy out, that kind of fight flight activation, going into some doing a yoga class or some extreme exercise, super helpful, right? And also in the freeze response, getting out of the freeze response.
Some great, really simple workbooks that you can order from Amazon on polyvagal exercises.
Yeah.
They're super simple. They're not
absolutely
not intimidating or complicated at all, and helpful, really helpful.
Yeah.
If anybody's interested, you can just a quick Google search will bring some simple ones up.
So I because we're talking about kind of bringing in this idea of trauma and Buddhism, there's this sense of identification that happens with our traumatic experiences. And in some ways, that's what the Buddha is saying, like, let it be. Like, let it go.
I have a question. So do you think that, all the emphasis on attention to the body in Buddhist meditation is essentially the same thing as like understanding about how the polyvagal system affects your sense of well-being? And that would,
I think
when I was early in coming here, when I was very early in meditation, I was like, I don't get it. Why should we be doing body checks? Why is there this emphasis on the body in meditation when it's my mind that's making me an insane human being?
Right.
And,
and you're, of course, now your mind, your mind is reacting to your body and your environment and your intention.
I still have a hard time with body check meditation.
Yeah.
My brain argues about it.
Yeah. So, yes, I think that all of it, I think the chakras, I think that Kundalini, I think that all that kind of stuff is like, let's get in contact with these, what in Buddhism we call sanskara or sankharas, which is the karmic implications within the body that are held within the body, traumas in the body. And let's stop identifying with them. Not by rejecting them, because that's what almost everyone tries to do. Or I just want to reject this, right? And then that there's also some in more of a overseer kind of creator God view, give them to the higher power, which is also it's a way of kind of surrendering, which is not horrible. But from the Buddhist perspective, this unraveling of our karmic implication or karmic momentum around what we call trauma. Yeah, that's the work to be done here. Yeah, David.
So I know the sankharas, they talk about it in like the Asangoenka, the Vipassana retreats, as being something that can be in the body that's held from previous lifetimes
Right.
as well
Right.
as like just current life. I don't know. That's what
Hmm.
his belief is. What's
Yeah,
your thought
yeah.
on that?
Yeah, so the concept of sanskara or sankara is karma. Sankara really is it's like a piece of karma, and that can be from this life or can be from past lives. So to back to the point or the question that kind of Shanti had earlier is, or I guess statement, is that what happens when we die? Our karmic momentum carries on. So really, energy, I think about it like the karma is like the water cycle, right? Where does water come from? There's actually no more water or no less water on this planet. It is either changing states or changing places, but it's not increasing, it's not decreasing, it's just moving, right? Now, of course, the problem with this whole global warming thing is that what's happening is that a lot of it is moving from ice to liquid, which is raising the ocean and raising the temperature of the ocean, and so can throw the ecology and the what's it called when it's I can't remember, like a pond, like the homeostasis basically of the planet, off. But there's no more or less water. And the same thing is true with karma. And it's within us, it's within our actions, it's within our intentions. Or like Star Wars, the Force. Star Wars is very Buddhist, by the way. I mean the earlier stuff, that kind of later got a little weird. But the idea that there is pleasant, unpleasant, or there is positive or negative karma, and what tends to get locked in is the unpleasant karma or the negative karma, because it's, from the Buddhist perspective, the work to be done here, right? So that's what's happening. So sanskara is the kind of buildup, could be past lives. I don't know. I haven't died and been reborn that I know of, and I'm not fully enlightened. So I don't really know. But based on the Buddhist teaching, that's what remains. That's what continues on. It's not me, it's not us, it's not, and that there is a karmic implication. And that could be multiple lives. There is a teaching from the Buddha that he, at the moment of his enlightenment, recalled the 400 lives prior to him being born as Siddhartha Gautama. He doesn't talk about it much, like for the next 45 years, but he is, when he's talking to his homies, his like tight group, his like kind of main disciples, he basically is like, and this happened. And I was able to see the lifetime after lifetime of karmic momentum, So, yeah,
I just wanted to
go ahead.
piggyback
Sure.
that, of the idea that you can clear your karma or your past life karma. I hear this all the time in the woo-woo world of I don't know what, but it's always fun to play around with that. Is that something that is believed in Buddhism, that you can clear your karma, that you can, whatever the past life karma is and your current karma, that's something that can be moved?
Yes, absolutely. And that's back to intention, right? Because it's a feedback loop. So, how are we, and it's also like, just talking about the water cycle, like recycling, like setting the intention to recycle because it's will save the planet. You know, whether that's actually true or not, I don't know. But my intention is to do that, is to want to reduce my carbon footprint, or, you know what I mean? So I'm setting an intention, and thus potentially, you know, creating some either neutral or positive karma as a implication, right? And so each moment, each intention, each moment of mind experiencing pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, there's an opportunity to receive with a sense of kind of openness to what's experienced, or react. And when we react or kind of shut down, or, you know, put up the a rigid sense of the self or the I as a defense, an armor, then we tend to lock onto what could be considered or continue a negative karmic cycle. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, and actually we were talking about something a week or so ago. This is like that. Let me see if I can find this teaching. I know I have it. It's called the 4 Expressions of Karma. Darkness into light. Here we go. So this is a teaching that the Buddha gave. The most noble karma of all, the ending of karma, is the teaching, right? So monks, these 4 types of karma have been directly realized, verified, and made known by me. Which 4? There is the karma that is dark with dark results. There is the karma that is bright with bright results. There is the karma that is dark and bright with dark and bright results. There is the karma that is neither dark nor bright with neither dark nor bright results, leading to the end of karma. So from the Buddhist perspective, that is the work that we do here, is we're trying to transform by meeting each moment as open and curious and calm and, you know, compassionately as possible. And that doesn't mean that we don't, you know, tell someone to fuck off, you know, if they're abusing us or whatever. You know, doesn't mean that we don't stand up for ourselves. Doesn't mean that we're passive. It just means that we're moving from an intention of non-harming, and that includes ourselves, right? And that from the Buddhist perspective, this is what sets it's like, someone was talking about it last week about a karmic calculator, like, oh, like maybe there's this karmic calculator of, you know, like what are those things called? The abacus, yeah, like an abacus of, you know, 3 beads on this side and 4 beads on this side, and, you know, that's kind of what we're doing here, where we're trying to, you know, kind of clear the board, you know. But, you know, there's other teachings from the Buddha where it's like, we can't really know our past karma. Like we can't, like it's whatever it is, whatever, you know, this whole kind of, oh, that must be because I did this thing, you know, like if something bad happened to me recently, you know, oh, it must be because I killed that cockroach. That's why. Or water bug. From the Buddhist perspective, we can't know. All we can do is meet the next moment with a sense of openness, curiosity, with an intention to not cause harm. That's really why the 5 precepts are there. The Buddha was like, okay, you've caused a lot of harm. But it was ignorant. You were ignorant of what was happening. And maybe you weren't totally ignorant, but now you know better. You've received some teaching, you've started meditating, you see that dark karma leads to dark results. Dark actions, negative actions lead to negative karmic results. So now that you understand that, and then there's another way that he talks about it is, if you plant an orange seed, Don't expect an apple tree, right? That's the, that what you are nurturing, what you are planting in the world is what, will grow. So dark results, light results, neither dark nor light results, kind of neutral. That's the neutral. There's pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. But yeah, so from the Buddhist, but like the guy said, parinibbana, you use that phrase. The word parinibbana, the phrase parinibbana means kind of free of karma, and then like transcendent, right? Which is, supposedly what happens. This dispersing and getting off the cycle of birth and death. Which, by the way, you don't have to believe in any of it. This is one of the reasons why, Buddhism is so appealing to me. Because it's like, all this stuff that, it's hard for us Westerners to grasp some of it. Especially if we've been rejecting of the Judeo-Christian kind of God. And even if we haven't been rejecting of it, we've actually been more, we're kind of buying into that. The closest thing to a higher power there's two that are found within Buddhism are karma and dharma. Karma and dharma. Karma meaning this causality that is universal. That is just the cycle of, dark karma or light karma, or neither dark nor light karma, depending on one's intention and action and thought and word. Right? That's it. And then dharma meaning the truth in nature. So the dharma is what we wake up to. Well, what we begin to see more clearly, which is the reality of things, the way things are. And one of the teachings that the Buddha gave around this is called this-that conditionality. This-that conditionality is another way of saying karma. Because of this, there is that. Because of that, there is this. And the cycle continues on like the waves of the ocean. What creates a wave? Certain factors. Right? We are the wave. Karma is the ocean. Another way of kind of looking at it. So, and a wave is a wave separate from the ocean? No. It's just taking a temporary energetic form. So that's another way I like to kind of think about it. I have a lot of kind of thoughts around the water, like water and the karmic momentum. Okay, well that's been fun. This has been fun. Any last kind of thoughts or questions you have there? We only got like 2 minutes. I know you guys can be shy. It's okay. All right. Yeah, perhaps enough for tonight. Great to have so many people in the room. I appreciate you showing up, and hopefully you found this to be helpful. One of the ways that we, talk about, supporting this group, supporting this Sangha, is bring a friend, tell a friend, join my Instagram, and when you see a post for this group, share it to your group, your social media. That would be really helpful, so that this group, this Wednesday night Rebel Dharma group, can grow, particularly in person. Like I think when there's more energy in the room, it's helpful. It's helpful for everyone. You guys too. We like your energy online there too.
Very two-dimensional though.
Yeah, but we don't get a full energetic vibe, the virtual Sangha. And then, of course, any donation to this center Against the Stream can be done at againstthestream.com, or there's a bowl with a QR code. And then if you want to support me and my teachings, you can Venmo me at Jason Murphy at Venmo, or No BS Buddhist at Venmo. You also can follow me on Instagram, No BS Buddhist. May any goodness that's come from our sit, from our time, from our contemplation and practice, may this goodness be dedicated to the freedom from suffering for all beings. May all beings do what needs to be done to free their own hearts and minds. May we all be free.